Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Um, I'm, by the way, I'm wearing a hat today because I shaved my own head. And I think it came out pretty good considering that I did it myself. Well, not shave, but I took a buzzer and I buzzed it because my hair was getting unruly and, oh, I'm looking at a bird feeder outside my window. I think some birds were trying to get at it. Um, Anyway, I was gonna say just that my head was getting so messy with my hair was just all over the place and I needed a haircut, but no one's giving haircuts right now, so I needed to give myself one. So I just took my buzzer and I put it on, so my head's a little weird right now. It's really short, but I'm just wearing the cap because I don't really like it too much as a style. But I'm glad I did it just because it would have been crazy otherwise. And I would not have made a video without my haircut because it was bad. Um, but yeah, I wanted to make a video this afternoon about, you probably can't read it because it's kind of faded away, but Jane Austen's Emma is a book that I read not too long ago, actually, maybe like a month or two ago. I finished reading it, and actually maybe it was maybe like about 2 months ago. I had finished reading Emma, and it made quite an impression on me. I enjoyed it much more than I thought I was going to. And the reason I didn't think I was going to like it so much was because back in high school, I had a really tough time getting through Pride and Prejudice. Um, that book just didn't speak to me at the time, and so I was expecting a little more of the same with with Emma. But I picked it up because I remember, oh, actually, I had seen the trailer to the new movie that's coming out, excuse me, it already came out with Anya Taylor-Joy as the new Emma, playing Emma. And so I think that's her name, Anya Taylor-Joy, or some configuration of those names, or similar sounding names. She was the actress from The Witch, the Robert Eggers horror movie from, I think it was 2016. She was the main actress, the main character, Thomasin. And so she's just a wonderful actress, and she's playing Emma in this new movie. And I saw the trailer to it, and it seemed really just like a movie that I would wanna get into and wanna see. So I decided to read Emma, knowing nothing about what it was about or anything like that. I just wanted to read it and get a sense for the story, and that's why I picked it up. And I wanted to read it before the movie, to read it and then watch the movie. I always think that's kind of fun, to you see a movie that's coming out that's based on a novel that you've never read before, and then you read the novel, and then at the end you're sort of rewarded by being able to watch the new movie, and having read the source material you can compare the two. So I like to do that a lot of times. That's sort of how I come across things that normally I probably wouldn't come across. And Emma, I knew about the story of Emma, but like I said, it just as a piece of fiction, it never really caught my attention, just because I had these preconceived notions about Pride and Prejudice, and not really having a good experience with that book. So I probably wouldn't have read it otherwise, but for the movie and for that trailer. So I guess I kind of like, and I like the movie, by the way. The movie was really good, but the book spoke to me. I was like, wow, this is it was just a very engaging, beautiful story that, to me, had a sort of profundity to it that I completely missed in Pride and Prejudice. But what I basically have concluded for myself is that Jane Austen is a writer who's predominantly concerned with psychology and human interactions and behaviors and just the complex nature of human behavior, and the reasons people do things, the motivations that people have, and just how complex things can become given those varied motivations. And it's a fascinating book that's actually quite deep. I know we're talking about things like marriage and, I mean, you think of Pride and Prejudice, marriage and romance, and it, structurally, I guess it fits within the romance genre, and it is a romance, but to call it a romance just reduces the profound literary quality of the work. I think to label it with genre just kind of it disregards the more complex nature of the work, and it is very complex. So yeah, while we're talking about these things that yield romance stories, these elements that yield romance stories, there's a step there's a layer beneath that, and that layer is I think very rich and very just very fascinating. We're talking about people and why people do the things that they do and why they don't, and just all of the mistakes and follies and wonderful and terrible things that can transpire when you just have an interaction of people together. Some are falling in love, some are not falling in love, but they are under or thought to be falling in love, and there's misreadings of signals and miscommunications and of course prejudices and egos that kind of all come into this mix of human this tapestry of human behavior. And so that's sort of what I got out of the novel, was this love of people and this sort of fascination with just how complex people can be and the situations that they find themselves in. I haven't said much about the story itself, but you might already probably be familiar with the story of Emma. Emma is described in the first sentence of this novel as being handsome, clever, and rich. The first line of Emma is Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever, and rich, with a comfortable home and happy disposition, seemed to unite some of the best blessings of existence, and had lived nearly 21 years in the world with very little to distress or vex her. So it's a wonderful opening, a wonderfully precise and concise delineation of her character in just that one paragraph. And that's how it sets her up. This whole story is through the lens of Emma and her biases, her prejudices, her faults, and her wonderful intelligence, her biting wit. She's just this fascinating character. And for the time period, just a really remarkable character in the complexity of, she comes across as a very modern woman, a very modern interpretation of what a woman is. And of course I think that gives it a wonderfully feminist slant. And yeah, so anyway, she's a complex character, and she's young, but she's also very she's multi-layered. Like you kind of like her, but you also see that she has a lot of flaws, that she can be quite snobby, she can be quite petulant, she can be stubborn, childish, but she can also be wonderfully intelligent, and just she's razor sharp when it comes to observing things. She observes things, but she doesn't interpret those things always accurately. And the setup for the story is that she's kind of like this matchmaker. Well, first of all, she's the daughter of her dad, who is widowed, and he so her mom's not in the picture, but she lives with her dad. She's rich, obviously, from that opening, and they live in this big house, and she's one of the better families in the community in which they live. And better as in like higher up on the socioeconomic ladder, and highly educated. um but she has set herself up as sort of a matchmaker for other people. And the problem is that her matches don't they don't pan out the way she intends them to, and she misreads the signal. So in that sense, she's not a very good matchmaker. However, she is very observant, and she hones in on these like details of human behaviors. And it could be the way someone says something, or their tone of voice, the inflection, and she'll read that signal and she'll interpret it. And she actually is zoning in on something interesting. But oftentimes, how do I say this? It's like she's too smart for her own good, and sometimes she misreads the signals. Oftentimes, she misreads the signals, or she reads into something that actually isn't there. Like she's just thinking it's there because she's overthinking it, and so she misinterprets someone's affection for someone as being something totally different than what it actually is. And so she makes mismatches, and it's kind of funny. But of course, she also has to find love for herself. So she is trying to sort of like look around and see who else is out there. But it's just an interesting story, and it revolves a small cast of characters that all have different socioeconomic statuses, different inclinations, different backgrounds and histories. And it's all about that, and it's all about how Emma has to be humbled. She has to be humbled, basically, in order to find love for herself. Romantic love, of course, but the romantic love, I think, the romantic aspect of all this is just, like I said, I think a ruse, maybe not a ruse, but like a mechanism for getting at these deeper social meanings and philosophies of how people interact with each other, and issues of class and gender, and sexual tensions. There's the interplay of like power dynamics between the sexes when you get like to her and her future. Well, actually, I'm not going to say that. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but there's a man named Mr. Knightley who she has a wonderfully tense, but also tender at the same time sort of interplay, this war of the words type of like, or war of wits type of back and forth. And so there's a wonderful chemistry that's there. And so you get all these complex interactions, and it's just fascinating. Like I found myself just turning the pages and really wanting to see where this story goes, because I had never seen any of the Emma film adaptations, like the Gwyneth Paltrow movie from the 90s. And I didn't read up on the story. So even though I knew this was a classic work of literature, and even though I had read Pride and Prejudice, I did not know Emma, the story of Emma. And it only came to me later when I was reading it, actually, that Emma was adapted into a film that we probably have all seen or heard of, Clueless. And it was sort of given a modern update, but the interplay of the characters was there. So it was funny, as I was reading it, I was like getting through the novel, working through it, and then I just was like, wait a second, is this Clueless? And I Wikipedia'd it, and sure enough, Clueless is based off of Jane Austen's Emma. I did not know this. Again, you probably know all this. You're probably like, duh, it's Emma, like classic work of literature. Clueless. I know. I had no idea. I had no idea, and so I just figured it out as I was reading it, and I kind of had to chuckle at myself. I was like, oh my god, it's Emma. Emma is Clueless, or Clueless is Emma. Uh, so yeah, I had a great time with it. The movie, by the way, I thought was quite excellent. I still haven't seen the Gwyneth Paltrow movie, but and I think there was a BBC movie also that was made out of it, but or made from it. But I think that the new movie that has just come out is quite good, and it captures some of the sharpness of Emma's character and the rougher edges, you know, of her personality. But it also, you know, overall, she's just a dynamic, complex, intriguing character that you ultimately do care about, even though you're often frustrated with her words and her actions, and her behaviors. So she's just in that sense, she's a very, you have to stand in awe of Jane Austen's creation of her to create a female character so dynamic and rich and unafraid of being a bad character or like an unlikable character. She often is unlikable, and yet you still overall like her. And I think that's just a tribute or a testament to Jane Austen's genius, and her ability to imbue these character creations with life and with personality and with humanity. I was blown away by it. So that's my take on Emma. I highly recommend the movie. I highly recommend the story. I could actually see myself reading this again at some point in my life. But since I read this, I have since picked up other works by Jane Austen that I haven't read, like Mansfield Park and Persuasion, Sense and Sensibility. I haven't read any of those, and I want to get into them, and I want to reread Pride and Prejudice. I think I really enjoy Jane Austen books now, that I'm not being forced to read them in high school. So, Jane Austen, tell me about your experiences with her. Tell me about your loves, you know, what your favorite Jane Austen novel is. Please recommend things to me. I do eventually want to read her entire body of work, which I believe is seven novels, and I think there's an unfinished novel that she was working on, that has been adapted into a television type of thing. I think it's a mini series, though I don't know. So yeah, tell me about Jane Austen. I'd love to hear your experiences and your ideas and thoughts. Thank you, and see you next video.